Chuck Todd, this situation, one where clearly the White House felt they had to give this video to the Hill, right? They hadn't to this point. Jack Reed was actually here yesterday saying, you know what, if they weren't worried about what was in that video, we would have seen it already. But clearly public pressure has now forced them to give it to the Hill, at least.
Look, it is, but, you know, they're also on their back heels here because they've done a terrible job of explaining what they were doing in the first place. And you could get more political cover and more political support if you laid out your case for why we're doing this, had sort of like, think about, let's go back to the Iraq War, and you think about everything the Bush administration, right? We can have this debate about whether we should have done it or not, but you know what they did? They made the case to the American people. Shoot, they sent Colin Powell to the United Nations and made the case to the world. They presented the evidence that they had. So the point was you built a sort of case for why you're doing this. The president has said a few things about what they're up to, but there's never been this sort of case to the Hill, case to the public of why we're there. And so now you have this situation where, well, what is it that we're doing? Are we at war? Was this, what is this? Well, because they've never explained what this is. They've never gone to Congress to ask for permission. They just sort of searched for it in stuff that was passed by previous Congresses to say, if we call them terrorists, then I think we can claim legality here. So I think that's why they're on their back feet now, and they realize, all right, we better hurry up and mitigate this because we haven't explained what the hell we're doing anyway.
That struck me the other direction as well. The Democrats have mostly opposed this effort. When I think if the more the public knows about this, the more they're going to support it. The public is not for drug runners bringing drugs from South America to the United States. They're not for drug runners prospering, period. So I think the more the administration talks about its objectives, the more public support they're going to have. I think most of the Democratic criticism, today everyone came out of there pretty much in supporting Admiral Bradley. However, they also came out with different views on whether the strikes were justified or not,
right,
based on their partisanship.
Well, so speaking of that, my colleague Jake Tapper actually just sat down and taped an interview with Congressman Jim Himes, who you heard just a few minutes ago saying this is one of the worst things he's seen. He elaborated a little bit in this interview about what he saw when he watched the tape of this. Let's take a look.
So you're saying a war crime was committed?
Well, I want to be careful with my language here. We didn't get the audio, but that's sure what it looked like to me. And again, I don't want to get into the details, but I want you to imagine two individuals clinging to wreckage in the middle of a vast ocean without any tools, without any weapons. Look, if this guy had an AK-47 or an RPG or was, calling in airstrikes or anything else, it would be a totally different thing.
So again, the full interview there is going to air right after the show on The Lead. But Admiral Stavridis, that seems to speak a little bit to what you were saying, right? He is describing seeing two individuals clinging to wreckage in the middle of a vast ocean without any tools, without any weapons. And he says, to your earlier point, if they had an AK-47 or an RPG, that would be another thing. It's also interesting, he said there was no audio. Would we have expected to have audio of something like this?
Yes, and kind of running alongside all of the videoing is going to be audio recordings, particularly of any intercepts. In some of the reporting, I heard Admiral Bradley talk about the survivors specifically called for assistance. Let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at those transcripts. Not you and me, Casey, but let's have people with security clearances like the House Armed Services Committee that has oversight here. One other thought that few are bringing up here, as a former commander of U.S. Southern Command, I oversaw these drug missions for years. And the first thing that comes to my mind when I see survivors is intelligence. Why not capture them, interrogate them, drop a plumb line back, not only hopefully to Nicolas Maduro, but at least to the mid-level portions of the cartel, because then to Chuck Todd's point about there's a larger game at play here. There are 15,000, 20,000 troops down there, a dozen major warships. You don't need that to blow up a few drug boats. What this is, in addition to the counter-drug, is a signal to Maduro that his time is up. So if you could capture these individuals. You could build that case. You could put more pressure on Maduro. So not only is it questionable under the laws of war, I think it fails the tactical test that a commander ought to apply to a situation like that. Capture them, don't kill them, get the intelligence.
Nobody better to talk to than you about this. That's fascinating. Jonah Goldberg, obviously one piece of this and part of why the Admiral is saying he wants to hear from Roger Wicker, the Republican chairman of the committee, is that a lot of the concern is coming from inside the House, inside the Republican House, about what happened here.
For sure. Look, I mean, just to back up a second, there's a very colorable argument that the first strike was illegal. Forget the second strike, right? I mean, the administration wants to have it both ways. They want to say we're at war, that we're at war with narco-terrorists and that this is a war. But then but war comes with a set of rules too, as the Admiral can attest. And you can't say, well, we're gonna use warlike powers, but we're not going to be hindered by the rules of war either. There's a perfectly good case to make. I'm not necessarily endorsing it, but it's a serious case for regime change in Venezuela. The president can make that case. They can make it to Congress. They could give Congress some cover to explain this. Part of the problem is that a lot of congressmen who don't know how to explain this. The administration has a gift for trying to frame issues like sending the National Guard to American cities where they end up cleaning up parks instead of fighting crime. And then if you have a problem with it, you say, oh, you're against fighting crime. They're doing the same thing here. Is like they're doing something else other than just fighting drug trafficking. There are not a lot of boats carrying fentanyl on speedboats from Venezuela to the United States. Can't be done, and Venezuela doesn't do fentanyl. What they're trying to do is play this game about regime change or something with Venezuela under the color of this other thing. And their messaging is all over the place on it. I mean, you had the White House spokesperson saying that they had to do the second tap in self-defense from a prepared statement. Like, really? This overturned speedboat is a threat to the largest aircraft carrier in the world? It's nonsense.
Well, can I just say on this point, what we haven't discussed is also in October there was another strike. There were survivors. They were not only picked up in the sea, they were repatriated and not prosecuted. So what we don't know is who was on these boats. That's something that has not been given. We have no names. To the point of fentanyl, if this administration was really serious about stopping drugs, fentanyl is not flowing through Venezuela. It's flowing through Mexico. So I think there's why was this follow-up strike needed? And then what was the discrepancy with the October strike? Why was there not a follow-on strike? They're assuming the same thing happened. People probably called for help. And I think also just having been in the building and sort of seen, to Admiral Charky-Chami of what he was saying, seeing how some of these strikes go down, you also have lawyers in the room. You have a legal team advising you. Yes, the command is delegated authority, but who were some of the other people in the room advising the Admiral who was in charge of the strike on what could be done?